Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan and here's Oscar the Day Ghost. It is time once again for the ReQuest, and today's request comes from Lord Gabe on Patreon, who asked us to watch an A24 film that came out in 2018 that I was completely unaware of. I had not heard of, Austin, called Under the Silver Lake, and the big theme here for us, Austin, is that it is yet another independent Andrew Garfield movie that I had never heard of.
That is true.
I want to say this is one of like 4 now.
So I think it's only been 2 since I've been here, but
I might be making that number up. It feels like it comes up a lot.
Well, I know there's stuff that you did that like before me, like Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh yeah, I think I did that alone, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So there's probably even more, but like I think we've only done 2, is this and Silence.
And so far, I forgot about Silence. And so far, I have really appreciated every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
This guy picks good projects, unless he is a superhero, and then verdict's out. It just depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, and we'll talk about all that because the connections to Amazing Spider-Man in this are varied and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was amusing when that came up.
We'll have to get into that. But for me, it comes up in several ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I have connections up with that too.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. So this one is complicated and fascinating, and it hits a lot of different kinds of genres, and is very, very difficult to quantify. It's listed on Google and a lot of places as a comedy slash thriller. That's how I've been describing it. I think that's accurate. But it's kind of all over the place. It's really experimental, and I feel nigh unqualified to even talk about it and attempt to unpack it without like 3 more viewings. Like it is absolutely that kind of a movie, and I feel like I'm in almost a Fight Club place with it for me, where if I see this again, I might have a totally different viewing, a totally different experience with it. I really wish I had more time with it.
Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely fair.
And so I got to be careful not to try to do too terribly much analysis and come at this a little bit more like how we felt about it or something. Not to cop out. I mean, I'll talk about what this movie's about, and I'll wheel together, unpack it a little bit. But I just want to put in the disclaimer of I don't totally have this one figured out. And I don't know that there is totally having this one figured out, which is why it was really mixed in its reviews. So there's a lot of stuff that's kind of up to interpretation. Does it all come together at the end? It didn't feel like it on first viewing. I also think some of that might be on purpose. It's very, very complicated, and I just wanted to kind of start in that place for people that have seen it, that are just gonna wonder, like, do we think it adds up, and did we feel satisfied when you get to the end? And I'm like,
yeah, for sure. Definitely that kind of a movie.
I will say right away, I was pretty well sucked in and with it throughout. And then I got to the end and was not sure if I didn't carry a 1 somewhere, or if I should have been taking notes. But I was never bored with this. My mind never wandered. I was real interested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's basically how I was too. I was very like, okay, is it gonna go this way, that way, like trying to get all the pieces together.
It keeps you guessing.
Yeah, and then when all the pieces landed, I was like, I don't know if this landed right, but I also had a first viewing full of trying to piece it together. So like, does it work better a second time once you know what all the pieces are? What's actually in play.
Yeah, and just as subjective as I can be about this, Austin, with no easy explanation or anything. I have to say that I get to the end of this movie and I'm not totally sure what I watched, but I know I kind of liked it.
Hmm. No, it was really good. I did enjoy it throughout. It's just I have questions at the end, and I'm not entirely sure it comes together perfectly,
Yeah.
but watching it, like, it's an enjoyable experience.
Like it feels like, and I don't know if there is an in between with this, Austin. It feels like before I've had a chance to really fine tooth comb this. It either is a really overly ambitious, messy screenplay, or it's genius, and you have to find all of the secrets that it wants you to find to figure out what is actually happening in it.
Mhm.
Because it's a movie about codes, it's a movie about secrets, and I think it plays like a meta thing where it in and of itself has those things baked into it.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
that makes it really experimental, and that makes it almost like the movie equivalent of performance art before it's a typical straightforward narrative. But on, at least while I was watching it, on a regular narrative level, it never totally lost me, which is kind of the highest compliment I can pay it, is that it's that experimental, and I was never like, I don't know why I'm supposed to care about this. I don't know why I'm looking at these people. It wasn't the same experience that I've had with some things that are just about, that are less about story and more about the way it makes you feel.
Mhm. It wasn't what was that one we watched? Escape from Tomorrow, I think, that Disney World movie.
Oh, right. Well, it could have been like that.
Mm.
I thought you were going to
Yeah,
say
it was.
Eraserhead. Yeah, it could have been like that.
Oh yeah, or Eraserhead. Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, but you were with that more than I was.
But it also gave me a giant headache from the sound design, and everyone in the chat was like, "It's got perfect sound design," and I was like, "I don't know, it gave me a headache
Well,
while
you
watching
you
it."
and I have the exact same thing. So there's
I
a
think that's good,
that's
maybe.
a sample set of two, but we're the only people here, and we both felt that way. I was pacing my basement nervousness trying to get through that movie.
I mean, I like that movie well enough. It just physically hurt me to watch.
Now don't get me wrong. This movie is disturbing in a number of places, intentionally so, but not in a like I want to turn it off kind of way.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's very much a movie that's not afraid to go places, and you kind of have to accept that.
Well, you don't have to fully perfectly break this down. There's a lot going on, but give
No,
us
I know
just.
exactly what I'm gonna
Oh,
say.
you do good. I was gonna
So,
say, just give us the broad strokes of a synopsis, if you would, Austin.
I'm not gonna read it off. I'm gonna go off memory, but I did like a quick glance to make sure that I remembered it right. I'm gonna go with the Tubi description of this movie just because I find it amusing. Because while technically correct, I don't know if I would say it is a great summary of what this movie is about.
Now, see, if you were gonna say they're missing the point, I don't know that I didn't miss the point, but they probably really missed the point.
Well, I don't even know if they missed the point as much as it's like, yeah, I mean, like technically that's what it's about, but like I don't know. Which Tubi described this movie as a LA man who has not found himself, who sees a mysterious woman in a pool, and then she disappears, and he has to investigate that. And
I mean, that happens.
yeah, technically, but I'm like, I don't know if I would say that's the like one sentence summary of this movie, but like, yeah, I guess.
Can I put you on the spot for a second?
Yes.
If you're putting together the streaming log line, because obviously those aren't really a synopsis, they're more like a log line.
Mhm.
What's the thing you say about this movie to get somebody to want to watch it?
I would, instead of focusing specifically on that, I would maybe just say something about like the overall like conspiracy, like delves into conspiracy maybe, as
If
opposed to just investigating a
that is that is the
disappeared woman.
that is the correct answer, Austin. Yeah, if you don't use the word conspiracy, you're doing it wrong. You got to
Because
say conspiracy, or you got to say code, or you got to say unraveling a plot. Any of those things.
you say, look, like, searching for a disappeared woman, and like you could say, well, that's like a Shane Black plot.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't tell me.
Well, and it's
Uh,
also 100,000 thrillers. Like
mhm,
the way, the only way to capture what this movie is to make it sound like five different things.
yeah, exactly. No,
Because
I just thought that was amusing that it's like, yes, that is what happens, but
it's interesting how the situation constantly feels more mundane than it is.
mhm,
I kept having that through this, where even as it ramps up and weirder and crazier things start to happen, you think there's a murder, or at least there's somebody that's missing, and then you think there's a conspiracy. But like even before that, you've got weird stuff with like a dog killer, and then our main character smells weird for some reason, and there's all these really, there's all these like interesting random women he's sleeping with. There's all these bizarre things that are going on, and it keeps ramping up where every time some new crazy thing will happen, I find myself going, oh yeah, that's right, this is a strange movie. And I keep getting lulled into this false sense of security with it, where it feels more mundane than it actually is,
mhm.
to the point where, not to jump ahead of ourselves, and we'll talk about more of what happens in this, but to the point where when you get the scene with the songwriter, I was completely baffled. Like my mind was totally blown. I was like, "What am I watching?" Like the curtain just got peeled back to the nines, and I'm in the middle of a complete, like, all of a sudden, what I thought was like starts as a tragic like relationship drama that turns into uh, a murder mystery. It then became the architect from Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah,
What
and
is happening?
that is one of those scenes where I'm like, I don't know what to do with this, but execution is on point.
That's exactly where I was.
I was like, this is both awesome and I have no idea what's happening.
I have rarely in my life, and I had this back in the day with the architect for the Matrix, which is part of why I bring this up. I have rarely in my life, Austin, found a scene that I more wanted to show everyone I know out of context. That is the most random YouTube video worthy scene. You just said it to everybody, what the hell am I watching? And my response to that would be, whatever you think it isn't that.
Now I'll be like, oh, it's this guy explaining the history of music.
Okay, do you want to attempt to break this plot down?
Yeah, so to jump off of where Tubi left us off, Andrew Garfield is looking for this woman that he kind of falls in love with, and like Tubi said, he's down on his luck. He doesn't know where he is in life, and he's like, okay, I have like this obsession. I'm gonna go find her, and it leads to a giant conspiracy throughout LA that involves um, a band that's like all about Jesus, and there's stuff with music where it's like all of music is connected. There's like messages and codes and everything. There's codes and just anything that's ever been written, and how oh, what is it? What is it with gamers? I think they say it's like something like, some people are like predisposed to like find this stuff. Like we find secrets in video games. I think it's Topher Grace that says that.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, it was bizarre to see those two guys on screen together, by the way.
yeah, that is true.
He's great in this.
Yeah, he is really
I mean,
fun.
everybody's good in this, but it was fun to see Topher Grace here.
When I think he's only got like two scenes, but he's very memorable.
He's memorable.
Yeah, like it sticks with you, and yeah, like basically just like unravels completely as he's trying to solve this conspiracy. And I don't know how far if you want me to go to the end with this because it goes crazy, but
We can get there later. I just thought kind of the basics.
yeah, I just mean like I'm not.
Maybe
sure
we
that,
should just say spoilers after that. Like,
yeah, I wasn't sure if like people haven't seen
treat it more
like
like how we felt about, because I don't think a lot of people will have seen this, and I kind of hate to give everything away before we've kind of said if we recommend it or not.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like if you're watching this, probably go watch it first before we spoil some of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, just to go real broad strokes before we get into some more specifics, and we do spoil stuff for folks that have seen it, and I'm sure our requester Gabe is going to want us to get more into it. Do you recommend this movie, and to whom?
Oh, to whom?
Well, I don't think this is for everybody.
It's not, but like this is the type of movie where I have a hard time going, okay, this is the I'm gonna like peg down this is who I would recommend it to.
Yeah, who's the
Because I feel
audience?
like yeah, I feel like you kind of have to go person to person. Where it's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, film people would love this, but like if you're just talking about like regular people, it's like, it depends who you're talking to. But I would recommend this. I think it's a good movie. What about you, Cap?
Yeah, I think so too. But I don't know how everybody's gonna land on it. I had a little bit of a Birdman experience with this.
Sure. Well, and this is absolutely a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. That did not shock me in any
No,
way.
no, it's gonna be really polarizing, and it feels like the kind of movie where they almost probably know that while they're making it. On more of a surface level, I think a lot, like you said, film buffs will really appreciate this movie. It's very much an art house kind of thing. It's uh, it's offbeat, and it's calling back real hard to various eras of Hollywood, but it has this kind of old Hollywood vibe to it, to the point where it feels kind of timeless, even though it's set very much in a particular year. And I don't know if you had this, but it took me a while before I knew what period we were set in. I Because it felt like it was dodging modern technologies really hard. And I was like, but in the first 5 minutes, somebody has a cell phone. And I'm like, what year is this set in? And then I was like, are we in sort of a Batman place where it's pretty timeless? And then tonally, visually, it absolutely is that way. But
Mhm.
it also is specifically set in a particular year, and is not just has pop culture references, but ultimately the whole thing is about pop culture. And so it ends up being another movie that is about the medium, but it's also about all mediums.
Well, that's what I was gonna say
That it's set
too.
in,
Hmm. Yeah,
and
that's what I was gonna say
I think
too.
that'll
Like,
resonate with a lot of movie people and pop culture people.
mhm. No, that was something I meant to add to like the film people is you kind of have to be into just all of entertainment, like to like appreciate everything, like
No,
when you're watching it.
that's true. There's
Uh,
almost prerequisites with this movie. Like,
yeah,
I found myself glad that I was into as many of the different things as I am, and still found things going over my head.
you have to like comics, movies, Nintendo Power. Uh,
Yeah. But
it's a
then
specific list.
it also is in all of that. I mean, I think it makes a really good point. I Because there's a couple places where it's real clear what the filmmakers are getting at least in a moment. And then again, when you get to the end, it's like you add it all together, and I don't know what exactly it's getting at. But there's a couple of places where it's specifically speaking to my generation, with the idea that uh, we grew up initially in this era where there were all these cool, interesting secrets, and you were trying to unravel them, and you were challenged by things. And then as technology changes, we grow up, and it feels like there's no mystery left in the universe. And all that stuff, Austin, resonated with me really hard. Like, I was right there with it. And when you make the some of the major revelations come out of a Nintendo Power magazine, that's just correct. Like, that's just the right way to do that. And a cereal box?
Yeah.
Like, yes. Well done. That's just correct.
Mhm. No, it's the type of movie where I feel like enough of the puzzle is completed. There's just a few things where I'm like, I don't know if I'm fully grasping what the point of that was on a first viewing, but
Yeah. And maybe it'll hit you later. And like I said,
yeah.
it does seem like it's pretty clearly also trying to embed some specific code stuff, not just symbolism, but apparently they had a consultant on set that's like a world renowned like code breaker type that like possibly put real honest to god codes in it. We don't know for sure.
Hmm.
But there might be something to break down in this that's like you know the sort of code that you get in one place in the movie where like every third word you're supposed to pull a letter out of. It's possible the movie has one of those,
Hmm.
and I don't know enough about that stuff to figure it out or to even know where to start.
Who directed the Stanley Kubrick?
Yeah, and I can see the criticism that it's trying too hard with that kind of thing, or it's going too far, or it's too indulgent because it's only for the people that know how to find that, or maybe for the filmmakers themselves kind of laughing at you behind your back knowing that you'll never get to that. And if there's nothing else in the movie to latch onto but that, and it's genius if only you could figure that out, it's too indulgent. I think as it stands, it's just going to be up to every person to decide how much they appreciate. Because, like I said, while I was watching it, I was real enthralled with it. And then I got to the end and I wasn't sure what to make of it. But that's also the experience our protagonist is having.
That's what I was gonna say. Is it's also too baked into the premise of the movie.
It,
Like,
yeah.
it's putting the audience through some of what the character's going through.
Yeah,
So,
and that makes him more sympathetic up until the end. And then I feel like by the last scene, he becomes so much a part of that machine that I'm not with him anymore. And I
oh, okay.
really don't know what to make of it. And that's where it becomes like Birdman for me, where as soon as spoilers for that movie, but as soon as you get to the end and he flies out the window, I have no idea what's going on anymore. And I had that with this, where and we'll start getting into spoilers, but without very much context. When you get to the end of the movie, so full on spoilers now. Our main character has murdered a man and gotten away with it, I think. And in the moment, I didn't know if anything that I was watching was actually happening. But, like, I'm pretty sure it did.
Hmm.
And then you get to the very end, and he has uncovered a bona fide sex cult. And I can't do anything about it. And thinks he's going to get killed. And then is just allowed to leave. And there's a ticking clock through all of this where he's gonna lose his apartment because he hasn't paid rent, and he has no job that we know of to speak of, and he hasn't done anything the entire movie to resolve that situation. And then when you get to the very end of the movie, he just goes and sleeps with the woman that he's been gawking at for part of the movie, who is topless all the time and dealing with her parrot, and then looks across the window and to his apartment and sees that he's being evicted, and he just kind of smiles and goes with it, and the movie's over. And I don't know. I just like I don't know what to do with it. It feels like he's part of the machinery. The bird saying something that we don't understand what it is must be part of the code. And
See, I was thinking.
I'm not with the guy anymore. He's now just a part of the whole weird code thing.
Okay, so I think we have like completely two different reads of this movie, which is interesting. Because I don't find him sympathetic from like point one, but I
Oh,
also
okay.
think, but I also think that's like entirely the point, at least from what I got out of it. Like if
Maybe
you're with
so.
him,
I'm
uh,
not good at first watches of things this complicated,
but I
man.
mean, also when you're watching it and you're with a character, like then you're with it. Like it also depends on how you are with it.
Well,
Uh,
that's what was weird about it is I was with him until I was reminded that he's not proactive. And I think it's just because Andrew Garfield's too good. I think if I'd never seen this actor before, I may have had a different experience with it. I don't know.
yeah, so like right from the get go, I have more of like an American Psycho thing where I'm like, oh, like our protagonist is like not a good person, but in an interesting way where like I'm enjoying following him, but like I'm not really sympathetic to his plights. The big thing early on was I'm like, oh, he's like a weird creep that like stalks women, and it's like Amazing Spider-Man if they know that he's creepy. And I was like, okay, so like I'm kind of with it in that way. And then she disappears, and it becomes like a weird obsession where like that's what drives him into following it. And I'm also like 92% sure that he is the dog killer in the movie
Oh,
throughout.
because that
Um,
was just a big question mark to me at the end.
yeah, no, my big question mark with that stuff is I'm not really sure what to do with the owl thing.
You clearly have figured more of this movie out than I have. Because when I got to the end, I was like, I guess I'm just never gonna understand any of this.
But I'm also throughout the movie going,
I was more
okay,
grabbing onto thematic stuff, which is very me.
yeah, no, at a certain point I'm like, okay, we're building to a twist where like maybe none of this is happening, and it isn't. But I also don't think a lot of what I was feeling through the first half is wrong. So I don't know if it's like I'm gonna rewatch it and go, okay, I was more looking at it down this rabbit hole, that which is not the way it ended up going fully by the end. So like maybe altogether I'll feel differently. But
Yeah.
just watching it.
Do you think that there's any chance on a second viewing you'll realize that more of it is in his head than we thought, or did it all happen?
I don't know, because that's what I was thinking was happening during the movie. So I feel like I will have less of that on a second viewing. But I
Yeah.
don't know. Like maybe I'll rewatch it and go, okay, no, I was kind of right about some of that stuff. Um,
Well, one of the things that I'm massively hung up on
mhm.
is the songwriter has to be lying.
Well, the songwriter scene is just a big question mark for me. Where, like I said, I think that's a great scene. I'm not entirely sure what to do with it in the overall whole.
But it has to be partially true and connected because, again, at least thematically, this whole thing is about like using art to manipulate people, and we know that like the power of media is what the whole thing is about. And I think part of the reason, by the way, that I feeling more sympathetic to him, and I don't know what this says about me, is that I was with him a little bit in his kind of like angry rantings about uh, like people in power knowing more than we do and having control of us through media, and his whole speech to the girl in the bathroom about how media can't be just about the one thing. And I'm like, he sounds like a crazy person. I am right there with him in this in this moment. I had places where I was like, I these conspiracies feel too real to me, and I don't know what it says about me that I'm buying into some of it. Like there was some of it that I was like, Hollywood is this disturbing.
Mhm.
Where I was
Yeah,
like,
I
I think some
definitely
of
had
what
some
I'm
of that.
seeing is not that far away from reality. I'm sorry, what Austin?
No, I definitely had some of, oh, this is just LA. But no, I think what threw me off so much about the music scene is that I wasn't expecting it to get so big. Where I was like, oh, like
Yeah,
all of music through the last like three generations is written by one person.
more than that.
That was,
That's what makes it impossible. He goes back to Beethoven.
oh, true.
He goes back to 1820, Austin, and I'm like,
But
he's
once you have control of everything, you don't necessarily like, you can say things came out at a certain time. Like I don't know where to put that. Like you
yeah.
have control of history at that
But they
point.
also made him look like unnaturally old. Almost as if they were trying to suggest perhaps this guy has lived 300 years or something.
Mhm.
I I didn't know what to make of all that. But the thing is, literally inside of the story, like in the reality of the fiction, our main character did find like real clues to an actual conspiracy within songs this guy claims to have written, and he knows about some of this and is like prepared for it. He's armed.
Mhm.
So there's truth in some of it.
It's maybe not the first time someone's approached him.
Yeah. It is the first time that he got
Killed.
his head smashed in by a guitar.
Unless he can revive. He's been alive for hundreds of years.
Yeah, maybe so. And then I wondered, is there some kind of supernatural component to this? and we never get any kind of answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought after the insanity of that scene that the movie at the end might just go full tilt and have aliens beam up the conspirators
Mm-hmm.
at the end. I thought that might happen. That like at the end of the day, the crazy cult that everybody thinks is nuts and is just a man trying to get laid is in fact actually true, because some of that comes from disturbing real life accounts of things we know about. You know, the cult in the 70s, with, I forget the name of it, but with um the like suicide pills.
Is it like the Heaven's Gate or
Yeah,
whatever?
that's what it is.
Yeah,
And they intentionally
drinking the
killed
Kool-Aid.
themselves thinking that they were gonna be, beamed up by aliens. And like their souls were gonna go to another planet. This does exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Except
Yeah,
they bury themselves underground first.
because they're kings.
Because what?
Because they're kings. They have like tombs underground.
Oh
And
yeah,
they
that whole thing.
yeah.
Well, the pharaohs did it.
Mhm. No, exactly. And all that stuff I thought was like wild, but not in a, this came out of nowhere place. Like it made sense to me
What's
while
weird
watching it.
about it is that any of it adds up.
Hmm.
Like the skeleton of this whole thing is woman goes missing, we think she's dead. It's resolved at the end. Oh, she didn't die. She intentionally went with a cult, buried herself underground, knows she only has 6 months of resources to live, and expects that her soul is going to go with aliens. And that's all weird, but it tracks. We understand what's happening, and our main character has to unravel a bunch of clues, and in order to discover all of that. It's all this stuff in the interim that I don't know how it connects to all of that.
Hmm. Yeah, and for that reason, I'm glad it doesn't straight up go like, "Oh, and here's the aliens,"
Yeah, me too.
because you need to like keep the conspiracy thing where it's like, this is what they're doing, which is like a crazy cult thing, and it needs to not be okay. And now, like, this is why they were right. Like, the aliens are coming down,
Well, and I
gonna
respect
do
that we
their
don't have
thing.
all the answers, because it does have to be more complex than that. It's like I like that it's not in, easy wrapped in a bow, and I also like that it's not a tear down the system movie.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree.
But it isn't just there's a big easy Illuminati Illumawati that controls everything, and I it's like a group of 12 guys in creepy robes in a room, and they're manipulating everything, and we know exactly what they're doing by the end. It feels like it's potentially a smattering of a bunch of people with different uh, motivations, right? Like, you don't even know if they're all necessarily talking to each other by the end. All you know is that apparently, allegedly, there's a songwriter guy that's putting a bunch of codes in songs, but how coordinated is it all?
Mhm. And every
Like,
picture is a sex image.
yeah, it's just like it intentionally doesn't all add up at the end. Well,
Mhm.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because the other thing is, you know me, when we review these things, I'm always complaining about easy contrivance and coincidences. There's a bunch of intentional coincidence in this,
Mhm.
because it feels like the story trying to get you to notice those patterns and then put them together to unravel something ourselves, right? And so all that stuff is clearly on purpose. This movie breaks all kinds of rules that
Mhm.
it's sort of getting away with, because I'm really curious about it, but I don't know what I'm looking at on a first viewing.
Yeah, no, and I really like that he has that girlfriend character who, this is part of my like, he's just like an a-hole thing, which is that he has a girlfriend that he's sleeping with
Yeah,
who doesn't even have a name. She's just credited as actress, and I think
yeah,
she's really important because there's moments where she'll come in and he'll be like, "Oh, here's this crazy conspiracy thing," and she's just like, Yeah, it's like completely insane. Okay, anyway,
Well,
like regular
I
people
may be
stuff.
wrong about this. I think most of the girls have nicknames in the script, but don't actually have real names. Besides the one that disappears that we think is dead,
Hmm.
because you have like
Yeah.
Balloon Girl, who's just Balloon Girl.
Hmm. Yeah, no, which is very true because it's like he's so single-minded on this one person. But I just thought that was really cool that she's essentially his girlfriend,
Yeah.
and like he so does not care and is like interested in this woman he's stalking. That like she doesn't even get a name. Like she's that unimportant to his life.
Well, and he just yeah, he's definitely like objectifying women to the extreme. Something about the way Garfield plays it makes it feel like he's conflicted about that. Maybe I'm reading too far into it, but when I say I see him as sympathetic, he's not a good person or anything.
Mhm.
There's a lot of terrible things he's doing, but I find him real tragic until I don't understand him at all. The thing with him is he seems to be kind of a chauvinist, kind of objectify women, but it all seems to maybe come from a place of addiction and from a place of not having any self-worth, and that's where he finds it, where like no matter how like close to and serious he gets with a woman, where like you said he basically has a girlfriend, he cannot get enough sex. He's constantly looking for it. He's constantly craving it. And it's like he could sleep with 3 women in one day, which we basically see him do. And still, you almost have to remind yourself because of the way he's acting, you'd think that he hasn't been laid in 5 years. It reminded me a little bit, except he doesn't have a character arc where he grows and matures at all about that.
Mhm.
It reminds me a little bit of that early 2010s movie, Don John.
Oh, the like porn addict movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I kept having flashes to that.
Oh, okay. I remember seeing that those trailers everywhere, but I never watched it.
Yeah, I went and saw that.
I actually, funny enough, remember that you did a how we felt about on that because I was like, oh, Cap's reviewing that like porn addict movie.
Yeah,
Like,
that was a weird one. I think
it's
we
almost
went.
like
Brandon and I went into that blind. We didn't even know what it was. I think we just went because it was Levitt. I think it was the very next thing he did after Rises.
I think it was because I think that's 2013.
13. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
crazy.
think
But yeah, I think there's truth to at the end when he's talking to the homeless king for a second time.
that guy's funny.
Yeah, that guy is funny. He's like, "Oh, Andrew Garfield, why do you have dog treats with you?" And he has that whole thing about how he had like an ex-girlfriend that broke up with him, and it was like very damaging. And so he keeps dog
That's when I
treats.
realized this guy was really messed up.
Yeah, and he keeps dog treats so that he can like see her again and then interact with her dog. And I'm like, well, no, he's the dog killer,
You're
but
you're probably right,
I do think that part about an ex-girlfriend's probably true, and that's probably like building blocks for why he is the way he is with women.
and that sets him off. And so he's basically like a minor Batman villain. It turns out
I want to see Batman versus Beware the Dog
the
Killer.
dog killer.
Oh my God, Ace the Bat Hound. That'll be like the death in the family of Ace. Of Ace.
Yeah, well, and it turns out that the conspiracy he's unraveling, of course, is the Court of the Owls.
Oh, of course, yeah. They created all of music in Gotham.
Throughout history, that guy's performance is insane.
The homeless king guy.
Well, he's great, but no, the songwriter, he's nuts.
Oh, sorry,
He's
sorry. Yeah,
so
yeah.
good.
No, he's great. And what they do musically in that scene is really cool, where it's like he'll play several notes of a song and then flip, and it like all flows.
Yeah, and
It's so
he's
cool.
freaking out our protagonist because he claims to have written everything you've heard of,
Hmm.
and it's the
Yeah.
shattering disillusionment.
Unless he just is crazy, and this guy's like, oh, he's insane. I'm just gonna mess with him.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
feel like there's got to be. Maybe I'm wrong. There's got to be a code baked into the movie where if you figured it all out, then you would understand this protagonist by the end. Like,
Mhm.
I think that's the secret, is you're not supposed to know who this guy is until you can get all the pieces.
Mhm. Yeah, fair enough. What I have with, because you said you weren't sure about the ending, um, I thought the ending was good because it's like a refusal to change with him, where he's not going to get any better.
Yeah.
He's just going to settle into what he's already doing, and instead of finding a job or anything, he just sleeps with a woman to live at her place now. Like it's like that thing, um, and I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it just I had that feeling that I'm getting more and more with stuff where I can kind of sometimes tell when a movie is probably about to be over, and I'm like desperate for it to have one more scene. So it's like, oh no, don't go to credits now. It's gonna do that, isn't it? And then it goes to credits, and I was like, I don't know what to make of this scene, and now I feel like I'm like it's nice that the movie is challenging me, but I'm like, this is harder now.
See, but Cap,
This is all I have to work with.
if it were an 80s movie, they would have been like, sorry, we're burying ourselves. And then it would have just played the credits over him walking out of the Silver Lake area while the Ghostbusters theme plays.
Well, again, I didn't get wrapped up with a bow, and I don't even know if I have a problem with the ending. I need to watch it again. Clearly, I don't. I
Yeah.
don't understand this movie, and
Mhm.
I'm fully admitting that. And it is a consummate. You have to watch it more than once kind of thing. I think you've
And
got
I agree.
more of it figured out than I do, because I was really hung up on ideas, and that's just me on a first viewing with stuff. I always start in that place,
No, I
and
just think it's
you are
interesting that
much better at understanding what happens in a thing on one viewing, which is the whole reason that I make you do the synopsis.
no, I just think it's interesting that we both watched it and agree that um, a second viewing would be beneficial, but you can also tell where both of us, like our interests lied in the movie, where it's like
Yeah.
this is where we kind of it kind of hooked us and pulled our attention, because this is the type of movie where it's gonna show your biases on that stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because again, I was really interested in what it seemed to be saying about the culture and, uh, how much technology has changed as, uh, and how easily manipulated we might be through media and advertising. And like we've seen lots of movies about that, certainly, but it felt like really fresh and kind of like creepy and wrong and weird in this. And with an unreliable protagonist where I can't decide if he is like paranoid and going too far with it, but I'm also, again, I don't know what it says about me, buying too much into what he's talking about, maybe, where when he starts talking about, and you're right, a lot of it is sex and stuff, about subliminal advertising, and just subliminal messages in things that you intentionally consume, not just commercials, but like music and film and TV and stuff. And this was one of the lines that hit me sideways and really resonated with me, when he starts talking about the things like the ideology. It's not him; it's a different character. But the ideologies that you think are your idea,
Mhm.
but actually come from something else. I that movie is not just talking about TV and movies; it's also talking about the internet.
Mhm. Yeah, no, and I think because that's stuff that I've always thought about, and I remember in school we talked about the advertising thing specifically. So that was something I've just found amusing, where I was like, "Oh, you never picked up about the sex thing in marketing, Andrew Garfield? Like I was learning about that in school."
Well, sure, yeah,
But no, I found all that interesting, but like it's stuff that I've always thought about, so it wasn't like I was like latching onto it as much in that way, I guess. Well, I was more so trying to piece it together, where I was like, "Oh, like it's cool that we're talking about all of this." Because this is absolutely something I'm interested in.
yeah. Well, I got distracted from the very beginning because of the weird way I felt like it was avoiding technology, and that combined with, uh,
When Andrew Garfield doesn't even have a TV.
Yeah.
Actually, or is it just cable? He.
But also, a lot of the people he interacts with are also nobody's got a head and a cell phone. Everybody's like interacting with people and making eye contact, and it feels like we're not in the year we're in. What's also weird about it is this is a movie that is released in 18, doesn't start filming until 16, but is set in 2011.
Mhm.
And I think so. It's technically a period piece of only 7 or 8 years before it, and I think that is probably just so that the timeline will match up enough because of how further into the future we're getting, Austin, with characters that it wants to have been children at certain points. Like Andrew Garfield's character has to be, uh,
A Nintendo Power kid.
well, but what I was going to say is, his age has to line up so that he could have seen Kurt Cobain.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
And you're right about the Nintendo Power thing, but that's more the other guy, and so like their ages could have been different. But
That's
like,
true. I think I was thinking about that more so just because I was like the Kurt Cobain. Obviously, you lose the death aspect, but I was like, you can just take that. So any performer like that's like a generational thing. But you're right.
yeah, but I also think that they wanted to go to somebody really recognizable like that, so that when you get in the scene with a songwriter and he starts playing "Smells Like Teen Spirit," everybody in the audience knows what that song is. You go to anybody from even 10 years later, and it's gonna be harder to find that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Well, and then
It's also important that it's early 90s because that's right at the tail end of a period where you still have people worried about satanic messages in CDs and records and things. And that's going to go away here after a while. But when I was a kid, I still heard people worried about that, and parents complaining that their kids were listening to things that if you played them backwards, there's satanic messages in them. And so you can't get too far past like 1992.
well, and they're like a garage grunge band. So like, oh, they didn't
Yeah.
actually write their songs is a thing.
Yep.
Mhm.
No, that's right. Well, and I kind of enjoyed the conspiracy of all that, and just how silly and heightened that whole thing was. We're like, here's all these people that you think wrote songs
Mhm.
that like that. I keep going to that one scene, but it's a really crazy important scene. But the thing with the songwriter, I imagine some people would watch that and be deeply offended by it.
You think so?
Not necessarily understanding the grander context of the movie, and I don't think I understand it either. But yeah, when you start, well, especially because people take Kurt Cobain or Nirvana like really seriously, right? And like,
Oh, I know.
yeah, but I'm just imagining somebody that really appreciates all of that, getting to this guy claims to have written that song, and then all these other songs. Like I imagine it played to me like it was almost intending to be to bother people.
Hmm. But if it was 10 years later, it would be a Nickelback song.
Yeah, exactly. And well, that's the thing, is that the further you go, the more derivative it all is anyway. Teddy put in a $5 super chat, just trolling us again. Thanks, Teddy. He just said Under the Silver Lake is one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger action flicks.
I agree. Yeah, I love the whole thing where it's like Arnold has Silver Lake memories put into his brain, and it's like, is it real? Is it not real? I don't know.
One of the most surreal things about this, and I wanted to get to the Amazing Spider-Man of it all, is that, and I appreciate the order of how we ended up watching this stuff. It just kind of worked out this way. It's a coincidence. It's a conspiracy, Austin. It's so weird that it wasn't that long ago that we did Rear Window.
I was thinking about Rear Window too. Yeah.
It's so strange because the very beginning of this, and it's a very different situation, But and it's actually the opposite situation, because in Rear Window we have a guy that's really well off that has injured himself, that's just stuck in his house and staring at people on his back porch. And here we have a guy that's about to get evicted who's doing the same thing, that just needs to go out and get a friggin' job, right? And he's doing the similar Rear Window thing for different reasons, but then you also end up with a crime that he's investigating. So like it's clearly very inspired by that, but goes in a different direction. But it's weird because Andrew Garfield in Amazing Spider-Man has a Rear Window poster on his wall. And in this, he is
It's Psycho.
in this, he's investigating stuff and putting all these clues together, just like Andrew Garfield is about about the weird conspiracy with his father and the spider bite in Amazing Spider-Man. It's really weird.
Well, I think that's why it's the Psycho poster in this movie. Is they're like, it's maybe too on the nose if it's Rear Window.
Yeah, they can't do that again. But it's still got to be Alfred Hitchcock. So like they know about that. Like they know he had that poster. That has to be an intentional reference.
Maybe it's hard to say, like, because that's obviously just they are inspired by Rear Window. Like I don't know,
but I think that's part of the casting.
Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. But would you maybe prefer this movie a little bit more if it was like, oh, there's a girl changing down there, and it was what Jimmy Stewart? That was a terrible Jimmy Stewart. I'm sorry. It sounded way better in my head.
I don't know what to do with that anymore than I know what to do with this movie, Austin.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Wind and take that out.
I don't know, all this rambling to say, I was really fascinated by this whole thing. I don't know what to make of it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, with what you're saying with Amazing Spider-Man, like I was also thinking about some of that, but for me it was more so issues I have with his characterization in those movies. I felt like this was a more thoughtful version where I was like, okay,
yeah, sure.
Like some of that stuff I don't like there, I'm seeing as like a fully realized character, and I was like, I really like that. Like I get to see, I don't know, just Andrew Garfield play some of that in a better piece.
Yeah, and I never felt as strongly about that as other people did with those movies, just because, unfortunately, I think I was desensitized to it through the 2000s with a lot of characters that had that problem that I was just supposed to ignore, and I was kind of, because Smallville has that same problem, and like,
sure, yeah,
and I think at some point it, or maybe even I was just never primed to even get why that was a problem, and then it's like, oh yeah, now that you think about it, that's kind of messed up.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, well, Andrew Garfield's just really good at playing like morally ambiguous. He's very much like a character actor. I think that is served better doing more smaller stuff like this. I think
definitely.
Than whatever big major blockbuster.
I also personally find him naturally likable, and I think it's easy to forget how morally ambiguous his characters are. Like I think he's really good at making the people around him trust him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I think that's an aspect that you need. Like you play this too creepy, and it flips over the line, and it becomes less interesting to watch.
Well, and also it throws everybody in his life under the bus, because you're like, you're stupid if you don't realize how nuts this guy is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I think you're absolutely right about the dog killer thing. I spent the whole movie going, why does he smell bad? And I can't decide if it's just the dog treats.
Well, I think it's because he talks about how there's like skunks all around. Like there's a lot of like little moments.
Well, yeah, he keeps saying that, but like that seems like an excuse, and there's got to be more going on with it, because people are particularly smelling him, and if it's just skunks are everywhere, they'd get used to the smell. Like what? Why does he smell bad and everybody else doesn't?
But there's also like a lingering thing, like long after like the worst of it's gone. Like
Yeah.
what I got from that is when he says, "Oh, like there's skunks everywhere," it's like it's because he's always out and attacking dogs. It's like
Yeah. Must be.
uh,
Yeah,
there's
so he
that
smells
part.
bad because he's killing dogs all the time. Like, that must be what it is.
It's like there's that part where he's talking to one of his friends, and they're like, "Oh, did you hear about the dog killers?" And he immediately is like, "There's more than one? Like what?" Like no. And it's like, oh, that's a really weird answer to that question. And then there's another part.
Oh, I
Where,
didn't think it was though. I was just with him too much, and I bought into this more than I ought to have. But in the moment, that wasn't weird because the media was constantly talking about it as a singular killer.
well, and if it was just that, it wouldn't be a thing. But it's like it all kind of collects. There's another part too where he's walking with a woman, and she's like, "Oh, I'm scared to, walk out at night because there's the dog killer. Like, if you're willing to kill a dog, then you're willing to kill a person." And he gets super defensive, and he's like, "That's not true. Like, no, that's not an equivalency." And I was like, "You're really weirdly defensive for someone that's not the dog
Yeah,
killer."
see, retroactively, I think you're right about all of that. But again, in the moment, I didn't read that as defensive
Hmm.
at all.
Yeah,
Like,
like I said, it's
but I was with him because I thought what she said was a leap.
mhm.
Because
Yeah.
it is easier for it would be easier for most people to kill an animal than it would for a person to a person. Like, he's right about that.
No, of course. Like I said, I think it's just a movie where it's just kind of telling where your focuses are. Uh,
But my point is, you were uh, reading those things the way you were because you were always already suspicious of him.
just because, like, with just everything with his character, where I was like, okay, this guy's not an especially great person. Like, he's got like an edge to him. There's something here. Like, we keep coming back to this.
I'm also, and call me cynical with this. I also have this thing, and I don't watch a lot of like real new movies, partly for this reason. Like, I'm a little out of touch. I got to be honest with you. You are really coming at this as a person that watches newer movies, and I don't as much, and so I feel a little bit off of my own, um, because I find a lot when I take a look at things that have been made more recently, and especially independent things. People really like making movies about horrible people, and I don't necessarily expect that I'm supposed to be suspicious of them any further than just we make movies about bad people all the time.
Hmm. I mean, I think it's mostly because it's like we open to him, like kind of creeping on women where he's, like watching them, and then it's like we kind of keep doubling down on things where it's like, okay, and then he's gonna be evicted because he's not paying his rent, and everyone's like, "Oh, do you have a job?" And he's like, "Ah, why does everyone ask if I have a job?" Like that. Like it just things kept happening where I was like, okay, well, and then uh, not too far into it, like he assaults those kids, uh,
Yeah.
who key his car, but which sucks. Like, don't do that. But I think that's probably the big clue in where I was like, okay, this guy's not a good person.
Well, I don't mean to keep going in circles. Well, I knew he wasn't a good person from the beginning because of the way he was treating women. But again,
Yeah.
I just expect most protagonists these days are going to be kind of assholes. I don't know. But I don't mean to keep going in circles, but part of my issue, I just had this weird experience with this movie, Austin, is I kept forgetting, I kept having to be reminded of details that I'd had from earlier, because such strange things would happen to him, I would feel bad with him in the moment.
Mhm.
So you get far enough away from his beating up the kids, I totally forgot that happened.
Hmm. I mean, it's a movie that throws 8,000 balls in the air.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention to all, or sorry, not that you have to pay attention to all of them, but it trusts that you're following every single ball, and most of the audience is not on a first
No,
viewing.
and I guess it's not even that I'm not following it. It's like I'm having an ADHD thing where it's like after a couple of scenes, I'm in like a new episode and I forget what happened in season 1, episode 5. Like,
Yeah, exactly. In this Netflix miniseries. Absolutely. Yeah, where was I gonna go from there? I don't know. I can't remember. The conspiracy theorists got it. They got it out of me. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I'm deeply uncomfortable talking about a thing like this after one viewing.
Hmm.
We've gone for an hour. I feel like it's a complete waste of time on my end.
No, I mean that's always a value, I think. Like you can watch a movie, have no idea what happened, come in and whatever you're like that's still your opinion. Like that's still worth something.
Yeah, well, the amazing thing is that like I still think I like it. I mean, I definitely want to look at it more.
Hmm. Yeah.
I
Sorry.
I think I was also more sympathetic and with this guy than I should be because I felt bad for things like he gets drugged all the time.
Well, and I think with the cookie thing, the second he ate that, when he like shoves it in his mouth after they say take a bite, I was like, that was drugs. You ate
I
it.
should have known that. I
Like,
didn't
why did you
expect
do
that.
that?
I'm too naive for a movie like this. And then but then later I was like, you are dumb if you drink that tea. And then he did. And I was like, that was dumb. You should not have drank that tea.
No, like of course. That was another thing. The second they asked him about it, I was like, that's also drug. Come on, man.
But then like he's with Balloon Girl and she's like, oh, did you eat the whole cookie? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And then she just leaves.
No, that's cool. Yeah. No, that whole scene was really funny. That was a place where I'm like, okay, we're going into a different direction entirely, and then the movie
Yeah.
goes, nope.
Tom Atkins, what did you think of the owl woman? She really freaked me out. I just didn't know what to make of any of that. I was like, well,
That yeah.
clearly there's some sort of a connection with the conspiracy, with the or the clue with the owl on the dollar bill, and there's like owls everywhere. Oh, it is Court of the Owls. That's what it is. It's Court of the Owls.
Yeah, it really
It's
was.
actually Court of the Owls.
If
But
only Talon was just a naked woman with a bat, like an owl mask.
But then it turns out that there's like an actual physical naked owl woman that he sees on the guy's like Batman 89 setup. Did you catch that? It was the same kind of TV as in almost the same configuration that Bruce Wayne
No,
has in 89.
no, I didn't. That's awesome.
That was pretty funny.
The owl woman, I have no idea what to do with on a first viewing. The only thing I got is, I don't know, the cult tried to kill him because he was like closing in on them. I don't know.
The problem is unreliable narrator because not until I'm talking about this with you am I fairly certain that before the songwriter, this guy was already a killer. And anything I that he sees that there's no other like outside viewpoint of, can we be positive that it really happened?
Well, yeah, because she completely disappears, and at one point I thought it.
Nobody else corroborates that.
Mhm. No, when he's first searching for her in his room, I was like, okay, we're gonna do like some sort of twist, right? Where like this isn't like a scary thing, like that is first brought up by him telling his girlfriend. I was like, is it gonna be like a oh, I did this to surprise you. Like I was playing into this thing you showed me as like a cute couple thing. And then it didn't go there. So then I was like, okay, I'm not sure what we were doing there. I'm
Well,
also
and
trying to remember there was like a whole backstory with the owl woman thing. And I can't remember what it is offhand. And I think that's probably the
I
issue
don't
of
remember
piecing
either.
it together. Is it's like I don't remember what they said the significance of that in the like legend urban myth thing. I think it was just like in that comic.
Oh yeah, right. We didn't even talk
But
about that. But
yeah,
he's clearly right. That gives the whole backstory of that, which you thought was just, somebody making up a creepy comic book, and then there's clearly some kind of truth to it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But this guy, if you're right, and I'm positive you are, that he's really the dog killer, is obviously delusional up to a point anyway, because he doesn't even know that he's the dog killer. So that is evidence that you can't trust anything he sees,
Well, I don't
right?
know if it's that he doesn't know that he is, or if it's just he's hiding it and like lying to people about it. Because I that was more so what I was thinking, but it could be that he doesn't even know.
Really? See, I think, and I mean, I'm going off of one viewing and then reinterpreting it based on a thing that I didn't even think of that you brought me. So I would have to watch it again,
And I could
obviously.
be entirely wrong. Like
But
people could be in the comments being like, "You're stupid." Like, no.
well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's some blend of the reads that we each had because just looking back on it, I don't see how he's not totally oblivious to it.
Hmm. Yeah, that I'm not sure. That's a place where like I need a second viewing, I think, because I didn't even consider that as a thing, but it's possible.
He just doesn't seem very self-aware about anything. Now you might be right; he might just be a half-decent liar. But like
Liar.
but when he's talking to the girl about like whether or not he's a dog or a cat person, like a lot of that came off to me like this projection that he doesn't even understand that he's doing, where he's got this like deep seated, and I didn't understand why I was watching. I was like, there's a dog motif. I don't know what to do with it. Uh, but
Oh yeah, that was the other thing with the dog killer aspect was like the weird traumatic like women barking at him thing.
yeah,
That was both very cool and absolutely horrifying
well, and
and
I
silly, all blended together.
yeah, but it was disturbing, and I couldn't decide if he was, and just think like they had to get actresses to do that.
That's
Um,
the best part. Yeah,
uh, well, I'm glad there's not very many people watching right now. I
it was funny.
I don't remember what I was gonna say. Um, I couldn't decide if he was hallucinating anything because those were all honest to God dreams. Like he wakes up every time that happens.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like a nightmare thing, which is why I was thinking like also putting that in with the dog killer thing where it's like in his subconscious.
Yeah. Okay.
Something. Beware Andrew Garfield.
But like we're invested enough to care and want to know the answers. I mean, like do you find yourself really frustrated? I guess this is the larger kind of broader question I should ask you before we finish up. Did you find any of this like horribly pretentious?
Not really, because like I said, even in terms
Somehow
of
I didn't either, and I feel like I should.
mhm. No, because like I said, even in terms of finding the answers for it, a look that's part of the point. It's about conspiracy theories, but also I feel like I have enough of a picture, and then there's a couple things that I'm not sure about. So then it just
Man, I didn't have that at all. I got to the end and I was like, I don't know what the hell any of this was.
yeah, for sure.
What am I watching?
But I don't know. I feel like with that premise, like I'm more willing to give it like, oh, I don't know entirely what the owl woman thing or exactly how the music thing all connects it together, but I still think it was really good. Like I'm not like, oh, how dare you? I should know what this is.
No, I'm assuming that it wants me to spend more time with it, and you have to do more than just watch it. And it gives me enough to know that that's what it is, that I can't dog it for not making everything totally explicit on a first viewing. But I appreciate the kind of video game component to it because I'm having the same thing that I did when I was a kid playing, NES games from that era. I'm just assuming it's all me. I'm not assuming
Need to
there's
drop
anything.
app on it.
I'm not assuming there's anything wrong with the movie. I'm assuming that I just am not good enough at it.
You need to draw a map of the area of LA on your Trapper Keeper, and then you need to, as Andrew
Okay.
Garfield, like jump over the world and then go find the secret
Okay.
ones.
I will get right on that.
That's where you kill time. Is when you jump over the world. That's where those scenes are.
Well, anything else you want to bring up? This is about the messiest review I've ever had on the ReQuest, but
That's okay. I feel like it's well deserved. No, I think we hit a lot, like all of the kind of the big stuff.
Tom Atkins wants to know if I'm the dog killer.
Are
Well,
you?
if so, I think that it's in my the subconscious, and that I couldn't possibly know if I'm the dog killer. And Austin thinks I'm lying, and that I'm gonna go murder dogs right now, and then tell him I didn't do it. That's what Austin thinks.
Okay, I need you to do one thing, Cap. Turn
You want me to
around.
just
Like,
start barking like a dog?
no, like look behind you.
Uh huh. No, I'm not gonna do that.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was gonna say, is Spider-Man back there barking at you when you look at him? If he is,
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have done that.
you know you're
I
a
don't.
redneck when your Spider-Man starts barking at you.
I don't trust you tonight, Austin. I didn't know where that was
Oh,
going.
oh.
I've been streaming for 5 hours straight. I'm scared.
You're gonna see an owl, like a Court of the Owl's talon, come out of your oven.
Oh my God, no. So we wanted to sneak in an extra request this week because we didn't get to the one from last week. I had to read a lot of comics. We couldn't get to it. And so we're going to finally do that tomorrow night. We had a request. Who was the culprit here, Austin?
I was Goofster, I think.
Oh, it was. Goofster asked us to do Danger Street by Tom King, which is a 12-issue DC Maxi series. I finished it last week, but it will have now been a week, so I'm gonna thumb back through it, Austin. But it's long and wordy, and I'm not gonna have a chance to reread all of it. There's no chance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
like
for sure.
I'll pour over a plot synopsis. I'll try to get as much back in my head as I can. But Austin will be reading at least some of it. Fresh for the first time because he didn't get to all of it last week, and then we will knock that out tomorrow night, and probably a pretty broad strokes review with that, because it's 12 issues, and it was an experience. That's all I'll say.
Yup. Yup.
There's a teaser, folks. It means something when our voices drop to this place. Jareth, I'm glad I listened to this before I've seen the film. It doesn't sound like I would have enjoyed it without knowing anything on a first viewing.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know. Again, it kind of depends on who you are, I think.
Yeah, and I also feel like I like it more talking about it than I did. Like some of the things where I'm like, I don't know about this. I feel less so just kind of mulling it over.
Yeah, and I'm having not the opposite of that, but I'm having this weird thing with it where, as much as it's challenging and it wants you to really think about it, it's oddly the kind of movie I want to just wash over me, and I don't want to intentionally think about. I want thoughts to come to me about it.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's that kind of thing to me. I'm almost having like the Connor, just experience it and let it hit you emotionally the way it wants to with it, and it's not even exactly that kind of movie, but that's what I want to do with it. And then at some point, I feel like it's all gonna click into place, or I have to become a code master.
Hmm. You got to break the web
Yeah,
of codes.
exactly. No, it's so weird that he's doing the same thing he does in Amazing Spider-Man, where he's like flipping through notebooks and figuring out all these secrets.
Andrew Garfield went off. He did like the silence and this. Mark Webb went off, and he's doing the remake of Snow White.
Oh, is he actually making that?
Yeah, he's doing that new
Oh
one.
no, I didn't know that. I thought you were gonna make the toll booth joke again.
I could have, if not like a week ago, maybe like a month ago, I would have. But then I found out he was making that.
I didn't know that. I thought you were gonna
That's
be
why.
like, and Mark Webb is working in a toll booth. The day's gonna come where you're not even gonna be able to make that joke anymore.
I mean, I don't know if I even can. Like, we don't have toll booths. It's not a thing I know.
Yeah, well, we do, but they've started uprooting them all in my state.
That's
And I
good.
just found out it is and it isn't, though. Because, I mean, they still have tolls. You just don't go through a toll booth anymore.
Oh, okay.
So
I see.
what happens is you have, this is neither here nor there, uh, but you they just take a picture of your license plate and they send it to you in the mail, and it is a pain in the ass to deal with those in the mail. Like, as much as I don't love toll booths, I'd much rather just hand my money to somebody instead of having to mail it in.
No, we have specific highways that you can take for that, and by that I mean like the one. But I've had that. Yeah, that is annoying.
Yeah, so I don't love that. I wish you still had the option.
They should just not charge you to go places because that's
Yeah,
stupid.
that'd be good. I like. Well, anyway, I don't want to get into the politics of it. We're gonna get going. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I don't know why we're talking about this.
What's even happening?
What
at
are we
this
even
point?
doing? Austin and I will be back. Austin by himself. I'm not coming. No, Austin and I will be back tomorrow
Oh, you
night.
can't do that to me.
Oh, I wouldn't do that to you.
Do you know how much I've sacrificed?
Yeah, no, I know. I feel like I owe you money or a steak or something. But anyway, we'll see you tomorrow night, everybody. Well, somebody will show up for that review. Friday night, Austin and I are gonna do a commentary. We're gonna take a break from the Rewind commentaries and do the original Beetlejuice because the sequel's coming out this weekend, and we've never done it. I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a commentary on that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
How well do you know that movie?
Pretty well. That's a movie I watched a lot as a kid. I've only seen it like a handful of times in the last few years, but like I know it. Like I don't know if I could go line for line, but like scene for scene.
Yeah, that's not a movie I know super well. I watched it real young, but not a bunch. I don't think my mom liked me watching that movie. I think I saw it at like a friend's house.
Oh,
It was that kind of thing.
I love jumping the line.
Yeah.
And I remember in high school drama class, my teacher, because I had her for all 4 years, and she would always have like the one day every semester where she brought in her Wii, and it's like, okay, we're gonna play Just Dance on the Wii, and there was two songs I only ever played on it, which was Jump in the Line, and Wild Wild West.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay, we'll see you later, folks. Thanks for watching. I was Captain Logan. This was Austin the Day Ghost. Goodbye,
See ya,
everybody.
everybody.